Good evening and welcome to the January 21st, 2026 Queen Anne's County Board of Education budget work session. Can I get a motion to open session?
I'd like to make a motion to open session.
Do you have a
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And 2.01, approval of agenda. Can we get a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 3.01, fiscal year 2027 budget discussion.
Right.
The Watkins.
Yeah, so this is our first official kickoff budget work session for the FY27 budget discussion. So we as a team and administration, the district in general have been working hard to get us to this point. Really happy. Some of the information we're going to be sharing tonight is, 3 to 4 weeks earlier than we've presented before, just to give us all more time to discuss this and have even more input from board members and the public in general. Mr. Watkins has put together a really nice presentation that we've gone over and kind of an overview of what makes up the budget and Mr. Watkins show here for a little bit. So it's going to be good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kibler. For the record, my name is Rob Watkins, and I'm the interim chief financial officer here. Tonight, we are going to talk about the fiscal year 27 budget. And so the slideshow tonight is going to go through a number of things. We're basically going to talk through our proposals for next year and talk through where the revenue streams are based on the governor's budget. So as we kind of talk through it, we're going to talk through the structure of our budget as it sits. We're going to talk through current information about that revenue stream. We're going to share the superintendent's priorities, share perspectives from our stakeholder groups and our administration work groups, talk through the costs to maintain our current program next year, and do a review our cost analysis as needs for Queen Anne's County Public Schools. So I'm going to jump right in to review some of the pieces of our budget that will help us along the way. So reminder that our budget book is really the document that helps us understand and tracks our expenditures and predicts our expenditures for the following year. I link us to the fiscal year 26 budget book here as a guide, and we're going to go through and review a couple elements of this in our budget. Excuse me. So remember that our budget is categorized, and this is required by state law. And you can see on the screen the categories that are comprise our budget and in our budget book. So category 1 is the Office of the Superintendent. That's really district administration. Category 2 is Office of the Principal and mid-level administration. Categories 3, 4, and 5 are instruction. Category 6 is special education. 7 is student services, 8 is student health services, 9 is transportation, 10 is operations, 11 is maintenance, and 12 is our fixed charges. When we post the expense reports each month, the expense reports, this one really is a response to the categories. It shows the spending, the budget, and the spending currently to date in the period for our categories. When we unpack the categories, we get into the accounts, and the accounts are structured in the thousands. So the 1,000 accounts is salary and wages. The 2,000 accounts are contracted services. 3,000 accounts are supplies and materials. 5,000 accounts are other charges. 6,000 accounts are land, buildings, and equipment, and 8,000 accounts are transfers. And when you look at the detailed expense sheet that's posted to the board docs each month, this one unpacks really the categories into the sub-accounts, into the first sub-account. So it's the same information, just a little more detailed here.
I believe, Mr. Watkins, you provided the updated ones as attachments. I don't think we're going to go into them, but they're there if anybody has questions.
That is correct. The ones that are on the screen right now are as of yesterday, and I posted the ones as of yesterday to the board docs as well, since we were going to reference them. When we look at the overall budget in fiscal year 26, it breaks down as such. The operating budget, the general unrestricted operating budget is 127, about $500,000. Our capital budget this year was around 13 million, and our restricted funds was about 6.2 million. And those would be mostly federal dollars or state grant funds that have earmarks for what they're supposed to be used for. Things like Title I, things like Title III, things like Title IIA. So these are the kinds of things that are in the county opioid grant program. These are all things that are in our budget. We spend down, they support our programs, but they have to be spent in a very specific way. When we look at our general unrestricted operating budget, and this is kind of from last year when we ended the fiscal year 26 budget cycle, but it still stands true. 83% of our total budget is attributed to our employees through salaries, through wages, through fixed charges. And then when you break down the remainder, 17%, you see contracted services is a component. Supplies and materials is about 2%. Other charges is about 4%. Equipment and transfers make up a small portion of the budget. Remember, contracted services in many ways include really many of our instructional programs. So anything that has a license agreement attached to it is part of contracted services. It also would include other pieces of our operating program, such as maintenance contracts and anything related to that sort of business. As we've shared each month, we continue to monitor the budget. We report monthly reports to the board. We, as a CFO and the finance department, we continually monitor the budget and make sure that we are really spending down appropriately in compliance and within the budget. And then we do routine budget analysis and we review those as an executive team. And those are much more in-depth analysis to make sure that we're spending correctly. The tools we use to keep the budget straight are budget adjustments and budget transfers. We've done several this year already. There will be more coming before the end of the year. And then the expense sheets that are in this presentation are posted. Remember that in our budget book, we have a page that kind of outlines our unrestricted funds in the revenues. This is an important page. We're going to talk through pieces of it tonight. So let's talk through where do all those unrestricted operating funds come from. So they come from a variety of different places. They come from the major state aid programs, the state share and the local share side of it. In the state share, this will be the blueprint funds, and it will be transportation funds. In the major state aid programs, the local share, that's also blueprint funds, but it's also the maintenance of effort funds that the county gives us that have to be carried from year to year. Our revenues are also comprised of additional funds above the maintenance of effort that our commissioner's office allots us. We also get non-public funds from another major state aid program, and then other revenue streams, much smaller, interest income, building use fees, any use of fund balance, that sort of thing. The things that are marked with asterisks is information that is provided by MSD in a state aid file. You're going to hear a lot about the state aid file tonight as we kind of go along. I want to remind us that the blueprint funds are in fiscal year 26 are over $102 million, or over $102 million of the $127.5 million operating budget. And they are comprised of the pieces in the boxes: the foundation, college and career readiness, comp ed, multilingual learners, special education, TSI, and pre-kindergarten. And when we add the local shares and the state shares together, that's what the blueprint funds are comprised of. I'll stop there before I move on to the next thing to see if you guys have any questions or anything you'd like to talk about there. Awesome. So let's talk through the revenue side of the fiscal 27 budget. So the state funding formulas is based on student enrollment, county wealth, and student demographics. The county funding, the maintenance of effort side of the business, is based on student enrollment and any increased per pupil allocation that is provided. At this point, the governor, I believe the governor went through his budget today, but it has not been translated into our state aid file. So today I'm presenting to you FY27 budget without the benefit of having the state aid file. So at this point, we do not know the revenue streams that are coming forth to us for fiscal year 27. And the primary reason we're doing that is so that we can start the conversation about budget needs, cost analysis earlier, so we can have a little more time to work on it and a little more time to reflect on it. The file in the state aid file provides us those major state aid programs that we talked about. They give us the blueprint funds, the transportation funds, which are state shares, and they provide us the local share of the blueprint funds and the maintenance of efforts. When we look, yes, ma'am.
Since we don't know the state revenue, is it going to be at least what they gave us last year? Could it be lower, or is that still up in the air?
It's a good question. So we're going to talk through some of that.
Okay.
The answer is it could be lower, it could be higher. We have not seen great increases in the state share of revenue from the state in recent years. There's a lot to talk about with this, and we're going to go through that. So we'll come back to your question.
Thank you.
There's a couple significant decreases this year. What's the reasoning on that? The compensatory education, as that's both major and minor, I see a significant decrease.
That's the current budget book for 25 to 26.
Are you on the blueprint includes slide?
He's back.
Yeah. This is actually this year's budget.
Yeah.
So these were the decreases and increases that we saw going into fiscal year 26. So at this point, we don't have this information for fiscal year 27 yet.
Are we projected to have another major decrease, or? Because, I mean, if you look at it from this year, it was 1.4 million. So, I mean, that's a significant drop if we're looking at the same thing again this year.
But that's an increase. So we saw an overall increase this year of $1.4 million, $1.426 million. And then when you go down and look at the local share, it was about $7.6 million of increased local revenue. We are going to talk about this, though, Mr. Dreyer.
Okay.
So
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
let's jump into enrollment. Enrollment is our primary funding source when it comes to the calculations in the state aid sheet. So from fiscal year 24, 25, so fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26, we've seen a decrease in 40 students in our total enrollment. So remember that next year's funds, fiscal year 27 funds, are based on this year's enrollments. This current year's funds were based on last year's enrollments. So this year's enrollments is going to impact next year's allocations. We are down 40 students going into next year.
So let me just stop for 2 seconds because it's kind of getting to the comment and then the two sort of questions. So reality is how this works. In general, and like Mr. Watkins said, he's going to get to it. Some of the categories, the funding per pupil might go up, but if you have less students in that category, that's why you could, in some categories, get more money per student, but less money overall, just depending on how that all shakes out.
And there's also overall weights that affect budgets, things related to district wealth compared to other districts' wealth, and that also contributes to increases and decreases in the state budget. And we'll talk a little bit about that too.
And as you all know, Queen Anne's County ranks as one of the wealthier districts in the state, so only so much money goes into the education budget, and so as they work those weights out, we're only going to get so much because of it.
So obviously, as the legislative session goes forward, actions that happen during the legislative session and how the governor's budget proposals impacts education absolutely could impact us next year, could impact every district next year, for the better or for the worse. We don't know the answers to those yet. We do know that less students means less funding generally. The fiscal year 26, for instance, we know for a fact in statute, unless something changes, the TSI program, the Transitional Supplemental Instructional Program inside the blueprint, which we saw about $341,000 from, is no longer. Last year was the final year of that funding source. So we know right now that there's $341,000 less in our budget stream next year than there was this year.
In which category?
Say that again?
And where was that? The $340,000 that we're no longer getting is in which?
That's right. So it's in the TSI program.
TSI, got it.
The TSI program went to support struggling readers in grades K through 3.
And it was put in there because of learning loss from the COVID-19 pandemic, which the law is saying is not a problem anymore, which I think we all know is not the case.
That's right. So I'm certainly sure there'll be some conversations about that and trying to figure out how those funds can be recouped. But until the legislative session does their work, we don't know the answers to that. I pulled some values out of the current statutes that we could look at. So right now we are projecting to see increases in all of these different statutes: foundation, multilingual learning, special education, and pre-K. And again, this is written right into the law. That's where I pulled it from. But we did see last year that some of these values changed as they went through the legislative session. So using these numbers as a base projection is fine, but it's nothing more than a base projection at this point. We are seeing a slight reduction to compensatory education at $56 a kid. So we will have to wait and see how all this ties together to help us understand our revenue streams. So we talked through that state aid file is not available yet, and it's needed for the actual values. But I should remind us that when we do see that preliminary file, it's preliminary, and it'll come probably in the next week or two, and it'll be way before the legislative session is over. So there could be changes. And I will tell you, we didn't see that final file until June 27th last year, if you remember, right up until the edge. We were very lucky. We didn't see any changes or significant impacts. So our budget book that we had voted for just a week prior to that was sufficient. This is a place where we can kind of talk about some of the impacts that the wealth factors have. So there's several places in the state aid file that are not advantageous to Queen Anne's County. There's several funding parts of formulas that don't impact us, we don't have access to. We don't have access to the guaranteed tax base program. We don't have access to the comparable wage index, and we didn't have access to the Blueprint Transition Fund. So those things are that some districts get an opportunity to have access to, we do not. Also, when you look at the wealth factors, as Dr. Kibler said, Queen Anne's County is on the more wealthier side than not. So generally, when we go and look at how the wealth is distributed, it is not usually distributed in our favor. For instance, there is a local appropriation that's given back to the county in order to fund. So we lost a little bit of money last year. It's called a local share adjustment. We lost a little bit of money off of our local share in Comp Ed, in multilingual and special education. And when you add up all those numbers, it was about a $1.5 million take back that we had, and that's part of the wage index that I'm talking about. Now,
That means two things to us as a team. One, the formula is not nice to Queen Anne's County because of our wealth, but it also makes, because we have to wait for those calculations, it makes trying to do any sort of predicting of what that state aid file might be such a shot in the dark. I'm just not comfortable to base anything on that, and it's why we're waiting for the actual file to come. And it's unfortunate that we don't have it yet.
With that said, there's still a lot of work we have done and a lot of work we can do in order to prepare us to be ready to act fast when these numbers do come to us. And that's what most of what tonight's presentation is about. So I'll stop there. On the revenue side, which we don't have a lot of answers to, let's see if you guys had any questions. The board had any questions, excuse me. And we certainly can go back if we do. So.
Sure. So now we're going to get into starting to actually look at building the FY27 budget. And again, from now on tonight, unless we go back to questions about revenue, which is obviously fine, our presentation is really going to focus on expenses for FY27 and where we're at right now. I wanted to take kind of this slide just to say, as you all know, I've shared with my administration. We've talked publicly about it. I'm really take a team approach to being the superintendent. I feel like I never want to make a decision solely on myself or my own feelings. I don't think that's the role of the superintendent. I think it's to work with the board, with your priorities, but it's my job to listen to my executive team, the administration, that's principals and supervisors, our school system improvement committee, our citizens advisory council, and take all of that and to put really what a budget for the district should be. It's not Dr. Kibler's budget. It's listening to the community, working with the board. And that's really what this slide is to show. So what we've done is we've collected input, and we're going to go over Citizens Advisory Council, School System Improvement Committee, the administrators and supervisors in the district, marrying that with requirements that are in the blueprint that we have to meet, talk about what the cost to maintain the current budget is, as well as then me putting what we're calling my priorities. That's taking all that information. That's not Dr. Kibler's personal beliefs. It's listening to the community, marrying those first three bullets together to present you all tonight with discussion moving forward.
And obviously, when we talk about the revenues going up or down, that impacts the budget of the total, which is why we don't have a budget book tonight, because that part of the total balance sheet is needed in order to calculate that. But it doesn't stop us from talking about the needs of our system and sharing the things that we've learned along the way. So I was fortunate to be part of a meeting earlier in the fall for SSIC, and they shared a lot of really interesting and poignant things about the needs of our building. And this committee is made up of staff in our buildings. So they shared, they voiced support for early learning programs, specifically the pre-K program, and the need for kindergarten assistance. They shared the reinstatement of instructional positions was needed. They talked through and shared that behavior specialists and further support for mental health services for our students was needed. They talked about the need for tutors. Tutors have been cut out of our budget pretty much completely at this point from previous budget cuts. So obviously more support for our kids is there. And then they did talk through the consideration of a solution for the transportation issue that exists in the Centerville area and affects Centerville Elementary School, Kennard, and Centerville Middle School.
That one's going to come up a couple times tonight. I just want to address that for the whole board because we haven't talked about that collectively a lot and just make everybody aware because not everybody has their own children in this part of the district. What that basically is with Centerville Middle School being on the same tier as Centerville Elementary and Kennard Elementary School, you have a lot of students coming in to these three schools. And with the transportation issues, it really ends up for those three schools, which is roughly 20% of our student body in Queen Anne's County Public Schools, they lose somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes of instruction daily because of the busing issues there and getting them all dropped off and then picked up at the end of the day. And so there's a cost associated with that we'll talk about a little bit later, but that's what that is. And so the issue would be potentially moving Centerville Middle School, like our other middle schools, to Tier 1, where they would go to school at the same time as the high school. But that's what that bullet means as we talk about it tonight.
So all three of them have the same starting time, and we don't have enough transportation.
Correct.
So then Centerville Middle School could start like Sudlersville Middle School and Sudlersville Elementary. They both start at the same time. So like drop off at middle school and then go over and drop off elementary, vice versa.
Yeah. So basically what they would do is they would drop off the middle school and the high school, which is what happens at Stevensville Middle, what happens at Mattapique Middle and Ken High School. They're the only, Centerville Middle School is the only middle school that's on that Tier 2. Mr. Pender, did I say everything correct? Thank you.
That same evening, I was fortunate to meet with our Citizens Advisory Committee, and it was a wonderful group of parents that really provided some great insight for our system. And that night, it was very, very well attended. They voiced support for more opportunities for early learning, lower class sizes, and universal pre-K. They voiced support for the reinstatement of instructional specialists and specifically identifying reading as an area of need from their perspective. They cited class size reduction, more mental health services / more counselors for our students. They talked about continued work in increasing community involvement, stronger increased number of partnerships with private businesses, and continued work in building family engagement. Continue to focus on educating students of their career paths and opportunities, and more opportunities for students to learn basic life skills. And that conversation was very rich, and it was great to hear the perspectives of our parents there.
The next piece of this is working with our administration. That's our central office-based supervisors as well as our school-based principals. Did something similar to years in the past, and then also a little bit different this year. The first step was bringing every supervisor and every principal in for individual meetings with the executive team to talk about the needs of their program and or their school, depending on the person. And then after that, we had them all here today, or not today, excuse me. We had them all here in December for one of our A&S meetings, and we devoted part of the day to a budget roundtable. Ms. Eichler was kind enough to join us that day, and that was great to have her. And we talked about the needs together, answered some questions, and reflected here, principals, supervisors, department head, program leaders, really reflected on the needs of their world. And what they requested were 123 unique positions. Really, that was more certificated staff to support students, and more support staff to support students as well. So that's your behavioral supports outside of the classroom, some inside the classroom. They requested more than $2.75 million in services, supplies, and equipment. Again, the ANS also brought up the solution for the transportation here. It's interesting that that came up from the teachers as well as it comes up from the principals, the building level administrators of those three schools, as well as the supervisors that know that their programs are impacted there. And then also many requests for capital funds to support better learning environments. We won't get into any of the capital requests tonight. That'll be at a later work session. We really want to talk, and I want to commend the ANS publicly and to you all, the board, that we don't want, when they come in and talk to us, to be considered a wish list. The team really recognizes where we've been at budget-wise in Queen Anne's County the past few years and that we've made cuts. And we do feel we get very reasonable requests. People aren't outlandish. They're not asking for teaching positions to reduce class sizes to 10, 12, things like that. It's recognizing that it's a challenging budget times in public education, and really talking about their top needs. And I appreciate everybody recognizing that. So moving on then, really for the blueprint for Maryland's future and the requirements there. It's clear the blueprint says it and we know it and we believe it, but our people, that's our teaching staff, our teachers, our support staff, bus drivers, administrators, cafeteria workers, they make the biggest difference in the quality of education for our students. We know that, it's clear, and the blueprint recognizes that as well. In fiscal year 27, with the 3-year negotiated agreement that we have, all QACPS teachers will earn at least $60,013 in compliance with the blueprint expectation. We had to meet by this summer that $60,000 minimum threshold for a new teacher, and happy to report that our contract will do that, and the budget proposal we're bringing tonight recognizes as well. With this 3-year negotiated agreement that we do have, that represents an $8,654 increase in the starting teacher salary, a 16.8% increase for our teachers over that 3 fiscal year period to meet the requirements of the blueprint. And I will say that when we did negotiate, we were not negotiating just the starting teacher salary. This was throughout the scale. The 16.8% specifically is on the starting teacher salary. We didn't do the every individual cell, but the increases were throughout the scale. A competitive salary means we keep our trained veterans and attract new professionals to Queen Anne's County. And our staffing levels show that, people applying for our open positions. And that includes all of our staff, support, administration, and teachers. And just another reminder, Mr. Watkins and I will share, 83% of our budget supports salaries and related fixed costs. The next slide now, bringing all of that together, and when we actually start talking. The funding that we're asking for is going to increase support for student achievement, increase supports for student mental health and behavior, restoring some of the lost positions that we've had to because of budget cuts over the past few years, compliance with Blueprint for Maryland's Future and the minimum school funding model that we've been talking about, as well as, when we get into the numbers, just what Mr. Watkins and I believe is sound fiscal management to make sure we don't in the future run into some of the problems we've had in years past where we've had to have furlough days, things like that, putting Queen Anne's County on the path forward. And today we're going to review potential expenses needed to support all of these priorities, bringing all of this together.
We'll review the projected cost increases in our unrestricted FY27 budget. We do that for your input and for your consideration. We do that without the benefit of that state aid file and those revenues. After the state aid file is received, we'll share it with you, of course. The revenues will be combined with projected expenses to create a draft budget for consideration. The draft budget book will be following shortly there behind that with the highlights and changes from fiscal year 26 to 27. On March 4th, we are scheduled to approve the budget, and we have essentially 4 meetings, really, tonight, and 3 meetings to get to that point, with 2 of them being regular board sessions and 2 more work sessions on February 11th and 25th. So just to kind of have a summary of our proposed increases. So the fiscal year 27 budget is $127,473,927. 26?
Is 127.
Yes, what did I say? Thank you very much. Fiscal year 26 budget is $127.5 million. The projected fiscal year 27 budget increases tonight, where we're projecting a 10.53% increase. That represents $13.434 million in increases. We separated those expenses into 2 piles. The cost to maintain fiscal year 26 this year into fiscal year 27. That represents 7.35% of the increase and $9.363 million. And the cost to improve programs into fiscal year 27 is 3.19%, or about $4 million. There's a sheet posted, and you guys have a copy of it in front of you. There's a sheet posted to board docs that talks through the individual proposals by line in our budget. And the goal of this exercise is to review the results of the cost analysis and work through a draft plan.
Sure. So what I want to do is just take a moment just to share some perspectives here as we're going to start looking at this sheet and proposed increases. I want to say that I'm a first-year superintendent in Queen Anne's County Public Schools. Interim or not, it doesn't matter. First year here. This is the first attempt at putting a budget together. And I'm a firm believer that I only get one attempt to be a first-year superintendent in a district and build your first budget. And what I'd like to do in doing that is say what I think the needs of the district are. And what we're pointing out on this slide right now is just to maintain the program we have, that when you look at what the CAC told us, what the SSIC tells us, the notice letters that we received from the AIB talking to us about our math and reading scores, we need 7.35%, $9.3 million to maintain the program that we currently have in Queen Anne's County Public Schools that we don't think is enough. And so what I'm proposing tonight is another 3% on top of that in additional funds to add to our program to move the students of Queen Anne's County Public Schools forward in a way that I think we need to, based on not only my own beliefs, but the feedback of those groups and what the AIB is telling us as well. And I just want to keep that in perspective tonight, that the program we currently have, we need $9.3 million more than what our budget is. That does not mean, Mr. Watkins keeps pointing out, we don't have a state aid file yet. That does not mean we're going to the commissioners or anybody and saying we need an additional $13 million from what we're already allocated. That's not what we're saying. We're saying right now our budget is $127 million. Next year, we need to go up that $13.4 million if we're going to meet all of these priorities. We haven't even talked about priorities that the board has too, and your thoughts. What I'm saying is if we would get a state aid file with an additional $13 million in it, that's not going to happen, okay? I don't believe that. But if it did, we wouldn't be saying we want more on top of that then. This is what we need to do right now.
So just to provide a little more insight into these and to support what Dr. Kibler said, the cost to maintain a $9.3 million is divided into 2 piles. There's really a projected required increases to wage, fixed charges, and commitments of contracts to the tune of $8.573 million. And then on the sheet, when you look at it, there's items in gray below that sum up to $790,263. And those are increases that result from previously cut items, funds, and budget lines that we've held constant but have seen increases in that. So over the course of years, we've some of the lines we've just said is going to be $20,000, but over the course of the last 3 years, it hasn't been $20,000. It's been 22 or 27 or 35. And so there's money that has to be added in order to support those increases, because the fact of the matter is, and we've all experienced this, our electric bills are going up. Everything is costing more today than it did 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 10 years ago. So we're going to have to start adjusting our budget to accommodate some of those things. In some ways we did this year, but as we uncovered and did more analysis, there's still things that need to be adjusted. The second part to this is that 3.19% increase, and that is right now currently sitting at 37 positions under consideration. And there's new programs and increases to existing programs to support to increase that support. Those are not in gray any longer. Those are just the budget numbers underneath the positions on the back end of your sheet.
Just to go back to the cost to maintain part, the 9.3 million that I really felt strongly about, that we showed the public and the board two categories there. We could make a decision to cut that 800,000, the stuff in gray, out, because that's basically what we've been doing in the district. We go in with a hope and a prayer that something's going to happen where we don't spend enough somewhere else that's going to cover these costs. To me, that's not sound fiscal management of public funds. And I believe that is why, that is part of the reason. It's a contributing factor to why there's been some budget issues over the past few years, which caused us to exhaust our fund balance, caused us to have to go back to employees here too, and take those furlough days to balance the budget. I want to avoid all of that. In theory, we could, again, cut that cost to maintain that 9.4 million by slashing 800,000 out of it. I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, it's all of our decisions together. You all ultimately approve the budget, but that is why you see the two categories there. The salaries are going up. It's in law. It's already negotiated. That's why some of them are in white, the others are in gray. And then obviously on the back, everything is up for discussion, the new. And yeah. And I think before we go to the other slides, now we were going to break to talk through anything on this sheet. Is that correct?
Not yet. Let's talk through this next slide, Dr. Kebler.
Sure.
So how do we get to the $13.4 million increase? So the submitted requests exceeded $20 million. We obviously removed some of those expenses to get us to the 13.4. Some examples of the things that were eliminated from consideration was the transportation resolution, or more positions that were under consideration, increases to stipends, equipment that may be needed both in instructional land and non-instructional land, conference requests, and further field trip support, specifically in transportation.
So when we, and just to talk a little bit about this, it was roughly somewhere around $600,000 is what we estimated for the transportation resolution in town. I just, knowing that this, was a big ask, I just didn't feel comfortable putting that in right now, but we want to still acknowledge that that's there and hanging out there. Positions, when we go through this, we've made as a team, and I'll stand it up with my decision being the superintendent, to not put any request, and be very public about this, to not put any requests in here for actual classroom teachers that would reduce the class sizes that we have in the district. That would be, if you go back to our enrollment summary that we did last month, our class sizes hover in that 21, 22, 23 range. It would cost so much money to put us back to numbers 19, 20, that I feel more strongly about putting in supports in the schools to support the size classes that we have. I think that is the better use of our funds right now. If we put a teacher or two at these schools per grade level to reduce class sizes from 23, 24 to 22, I don't think that's as effective as putting the math and reading specialists back in the building, putting the behavior specialists in the building, the in-school suspension folks at the middle schools and high schools. And that's the direction we went here.
So with that, I'm going to take us out of the presentation, and you got a one-page document that's a front and back that has all of the kind of projected expenses as it increases. So I'm going to take us there next.
On the front page of the budget summary, proposed
That is
cost
correct.
increase.
Yep. So this is the summary of proposed cost increases.
We have 2 items that are negative.
That is correct. So that is me pulling money out of different places to support things in other places. Like for instance, if you look down towards the middle of the front page, it says general. It says like finance, school funds online. We've been paying that program. That's our base program. That's our accounting program that the schools use. We've been paying that out of a zero budget line for about 5 years. So that's me putting $18,000 on that line and finding $22,000 from a different place to support that. So there were some places when I did the analysis that I was able to recover some funds to support additional costs. I'd like to tell you it was millions of dollars, but it wasn't. It was a small amount of money. As we go through the budget transformation, as you guys know, Blueprint has caused a significant change in how we are uploading our budget and managing our budget. There's still a lot more work to do this year. We're in pretty good shape with where we've placed the money and to be in compliance with AIB expectations, but there's certainly more work to do. So it'll be one of those things that we work on as we go forward. That's why we're definitely going to see more budget transfers as we get into the spring, for sure. So what you're looking at here is really, and I don't know, I'm happy to go through them one by one if you would like. But really, the front page is the summary of the 9.363 million. The things in the white above the gray are the $8.5 million of really required things that are needed to go forward. The things that are shaded in gray is that $780,000 of items that we potentially could live without. We have been living without, but eventually it's going to catch up with us.
And not really living without. We're paying for them.
Yeah, we're paying for them. That's right. So the salary enhancements next year are projected to be $3.7 million. I'm not sure if I can make this any bigger.
I think it's okay, Mr. Watkins. The public can access it, and
Fixed charges are always going to go up. We're going to see increases in, but I can't see it. There it is. So we're going to see increases in leave for part-time employees. We're going to see increases in pension and Social Security as a result of the wage increases. For instance, the pension, for one part of the pension, our employees are in 2 different state pensions. The ones that are in the teacher pension have a predictable increase. We get that. We've already gotten that allocation. It could change, but it hasn't. It doesn't seem to change year to year from the projection that we get in December. The other one is for our non-teacher employees, and that one I calculated based on projected increases. We are going to see an increase in additional costs next year. Right now we pull 5.08%. We pay 5.08% for each of our teacher employees. Next year it's going to go up to 5.27%. You go, well, what's a 1/4%? Well, 1/4% on $4 million is a good chunk of money. So we won't see that increase until next year, but we are projecting $132,000 of increase for our pension. Social Security, employment, you've heard it in the news that medical insurance just costs more. It's a placeholder. We're holding 10%. We have not gotten a final answer yet from ESMEC, our partner with the Eastern Shore Alliance, with what the healthcare increases are going to be. But we did hold a 10% increase because last year it was 7%. So until we know that for sure, we can't adjust that. Go down the page a little bit further. There's a 4% increase in the bus contract and increased values in the per pupil allocation. That's $414,000.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
When it comes to Marathon Health, I know this is probably not the time, but out of idle curiosity, has there been an increased usage of Marathon Health over the since it was adjusted?
35% usage.
And what was it where the utilization had to be to kind of start?
30 was the goal,
Okay.
over 30, and 40 is when they predict that we will really start to see an impact.
Thank you.
And that 4% is in our contract, so that's a predictable increase. Then of course, as you kind of look through the different things, we have required increases in our testing programs. There was a slight increase in QACPS, SAT, and SAT. We cut out dues and subscriptions last year, if you remember, and one of the lines we cut out paid for MABE and PZAM. And as you know, we can't not have Maeve and Pazam, so we got to put that back in the budget and pay for it appropriately. We have Zonar licensing, which is in Mr. Pinder's house, that was currently covered with a grant, and unfortunately, it no longer is covered with the grants. So we got to bring it into the local budget. We're holding a $350,000 placeholder for heating, oil, electricity, water, and sewer. That's a placeholder that we predicted based on current expenses. But as you know, if the temperatures want to hover in the teens for the whole month, that's going to impact that as well. Or if in June it wants to be 105 degrees for 4 straight weeks, it's just going to be expensive. And I know we're all feeling that right now. So as you kind of look through those things, I'll also point to the need to increase the funding on the non-public placements. That calculation, we've seen an increase in the number of kids there, and that contribution from the state went down this year, went down $15,000. So it's something we're required to pick up. So when you look at that 8.5 million, I did not include that total, but the white adds up to the $8.5 million. Going down into the gray, if you look at the things that we potentially could live without. One of them is an hourly wage increase. We have employees that currently make $16 an hour in a variety of places, and so that $82,000 is an increase to some hourly wages to try to get some of our employees to a higher wage. Now, when you look at the substitute teachers and the nurses and the bus drivers, you look at the cost and scrub that analysis, that is costing more this year than it did last year. So there's roughly $225,000 of increases sitting there to support that. If you recall, we cut $175,000 out of the budget last year in order to try to balance last year's budget. I think we're going to be okay this year with that, but it's going to cost more. We are looking at some core instructional programs. We asked for in the top part $300,000. We were fortunate to use a lot of our ESSER grant dollars to forward pay some of our base programs in ELA and math. Unfortunately, those grants are gone and those contracts are starting to come forward. So there's a $300,000 increase in the top part that we really got to have in order to maintain our programs. And then there's another $181,000 in the gray for programs that we also need to find a place to pay for. Banishment repairs, increases in legal fees and contracted services related to transportation and bus repairs and drug testing, equipment repair, custodial leased equipment, making sure that we have supplies for school safety, for building and equipment, for vehicle repair, and to replace old equipment. And so you see a lot of those same things in the part above it. So because we put the essential stuff, we have equipment that our custodians are using that is 10 and 12 and 15 years old and they don't work any longer. So we have to figure out how to replace those things in order to make our work efficient when we're cleaning our buildings. Right? So we can always say, go mop the floors, and that's fine, but it takes 5 times as long to do that than it does to use a buffer or to use the T2. So we have to include that stuff in order to make our work efficient. It's money well spent. On the back are the requests, the $4.1-ish million of requests that we think are needed to drive our program, right? So
I think I'll talk
please
through some of the,
Yep.
especially the positions. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
So, first, recognizing the impact in our schools on having the reading specialists and math specialists assigned to the schools. So what we're recommending here are 6 reading specialist positions, 6 math specialist positions. We currently have 3 reading, 3 math. What this would do is it would put 1 reading specialist and 1 math specialist assigned to every elementary school. And then it would maintain 1 reading and 1 math specialist that would split their time around supporting the middle schools, focus more on data analysis and coaching at the middle schools rather than actually working with students. But then having the positions back at the schools would allow those math and reading specialists to go back working data analysis, coaching, but also working with students that need interventions.
Would this in turn help free up, I use that loosely, free up the teachers because weren't they currently taking on with the reading groups and such?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, would it necessarily say that all intervention comes away from the teachers? No, not
No, but
necessarily.
it's a positive in terms of
Yes.
time
Right
management
now,
for
they're
them.
seeing their reading specialist, Dr. Schreckengoss, maybe once or twice a week. And this would assign them to the school full-time. Behavior specialists district-wide, this is really to focus on some of the challenging elementary school behaviors that we're seeing across the district. I know I've talked about that before. That is not a unique issue to Queen Anne's County Public Schools. That is a state and nationwide issue. These two positions, our Title I elementary schools do have behavior specialists funded through Title I. These two positions would basically float around the other 5 elementary schools as needed to work with students that are having challenging behaviors. Every day could potentially look different depending on the year, because this does happen. We might not need the behavior specialist hardly at all at one elementary school, and they might spend a lot of time at another one. It just depends on what's happening. The next few, the counselor at Churchill Elementary School, this was a position a few years ago that was cut. And we're feeling it, not having a counselor at Churchill Elementary School. I know perception out there that it's the smallest school. It's still a pre-K to 4 school, and not having a school-based guidance counselor there is a problem, and it needs to return. The 6 pre-kindergarten teachers, as we've rolled out the full-day pre-K across the district, what we've noticed is that while it's great, it's wonderful, a lot of challenges come with having classrooms of 24-year-olds with a school assistant. What the idea behind this is not to create a new classroom at the 6 elementary schools that have pre-K. What this would do is basically assign another pre-K teacher to each of those schools to really help on behavioral supports and just help maintain, as we're transitioning these 4-year-olds into the school system, what it means to be a student and learn. And that's really what this would do. One of the reasons we're adding that, if you do go back to Mr. Watkins' slide, the pre-K funding this year, nobody across the state really knows why. It goes up 30%, 36% per student. And it's why we're hopeful that this is something that we can do, as we have to track spending following the money to the school, to the students. This is why we believe that this is something that we would be able to do, and it would be very welcomed. The pre-K, while it's a wonderful program, it's taking a lot of time and energy of our administration and our teachers, and this would just go a long way to support the program and the high quality program that we have and that we want to continue to have.
I'll just say, I think part of the reason was because they backed off the 3-year-olds. Because remember, Blueprint was pressing to have 3-year-olds up and running too, and they backed off of that at the urgency of all the schools, all the districts. So maybe they took that money and folded it into 4, which makes more sense.
Could be. Right.
Increase per people.
36% increase, is that what it was? So moving on, the Spanish teacher at Mattabeek Middle School or Stevensville Middle School, and the reason we have an or there is frankly with the budget cuts we've had to go through the past couple years, we did cut a Spanish teaching position, and we have been asking that teacher to split time. They work 1 semester at Stevensville Middle School, and then the 2nd semester at Mattabeek Middle School. And what we've basically done is just maintain that students at those 2 middle schools could get their high school credit. It's really impacted the 7th grade Spanish program at those 2 schools. Centerville Middle School and Sudlersville Middle School each have a Spanish teacher, and we strongly believe that we need to restore that one position back to the district so that every middle school has a Spanish teacher, so that that's equitable across the district. In-school suspension support. So again, because of budget cuts, again, sounding like a broken record here, but there's not a lot of new here. This is restoring because we're feeling this impact. In-school suspension positions. This is for our middle school and high school. Basically, this is sort of it's having a place for students to go in the school, disruptive behavior during the day, rather than having to suspend them from school altogether and make them stay at home. We know that the students learn best when they are with us. They're in the school building. We used to be able to have a support position in the schools, and the suspension numbers have gone up because of having to cut that position, and it's very needed.
How many do we currently have?
0.
So who's supporting that currently?
They get sent home.
Oh, did it? I
Or
thought
the
they had-
administration.
Or the administration.
Or the guidance office.
They're staying in the office. So we know that, so you're having a disruptive behavior at the school, so the principal or the assistant principal or a secretary in the school, they're sitting in the front office, maybe sitting in the principal's office for a half a day, having these in-school suspension. We put them in a room, a smaller classroom type setting where they could do their work instead of sitting in an office chair.
I have a question in regards to in-school suspension. While these students that are in that, are they doing work supervised, or are they in anything to help manage the behavior that got them there?
It's a mix.
Okay, I just didn't know, I just didn't know if there was anything currently in the school systems, like,
Sometimes students need a cool down period. So sometimes it's a supervised place and a supervised location. In this case, it would be supported with a trained paraeducator to guide them. So it operates in a couple different places. It operates as that cool down period, but it also operates as a suspension deterrent. So instead of sending them home to be at home to do whatever, it's an opportunity to keep them in the building, to have them continue doing their work. They have their Chromebook, the work is given to them, and they work on their work during the school day. So also, I could speak for like how we did at Sudlersville. There are other reflection opportunities for our students, and there's just some pre-made lessons to kind of help students understand how to adjust behavior to be more to stay in class, to
also-
avoid being in trouble.
Forgive me.
No.
It's also a nice place to incorporate restorative practices
Yes, thank you.
as well.
Is this an excessive problem in the schools we're having right now? Or is this not
I think in the middle school and the high school it is.
suspensions? Is it happening that frequent?
I mean, the suspensions happen. I mean, we have behavior issues. I mean, that's a natural occurrence in every school.
We should take it up with the state and make the parents sit with them throughout the day too. I mean,
Yeah,
that's where it
that's what I'd
starts,
love
right?
to see.
Starts at home. I mean, parents need to take care of their children and teach them what's right from wrong. I understand that's not every situation, but our school districts are being hammered now using resources that could be teaching, and instead we're babysitting and providing parenting that they should be doing.
But
I know that's a little off topic, but I mean, it's not every case and scenario, but at the same time, we're spending another $400, almost $500,000 to take care of the people's behavioral issues. And I find that hurting the rest of we could be having math and reading specialists.
Sure, but in a building of 500 students, there's going to be disagreements and moments of lapses of judgment, and this
I
presents
understand that, yeah.
an opportunity to use restorative practices to fix that. It also gives us an opportunity to give them a chance to decompress.
Much rather be able to say, come sit, let's just sit, cool down and work for an hour, rather than calling parent and having to remove them for the rest of the day.
But there is I guess what I'm asking is there is at times somebody to say, like, what happened?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my question. I think you said earlier that the uptick at the elementary level has just been going higher and higher. I was going to ask and it's not just the state, but across the country. Is there a reason? Was it COVID? Is it technology? Does anybody, what's
I think
causing
it's busy
it?
parents, technology, lack of parenting.
I frankly think it's everything you just said. The COVID landscape, the technology, it's got to be playing a role. Just has to be. And it's partly with some of these behavior support and the specialists, why I truly believe that if you have a class of 25, if we were able to put a classroom teacher and remove that to 23, the behaviors are still going to happen. Dropping that 2 or 3 students isn't going to cause that. Having the supports to be able to remove a student if you need to for a small time, work on your small groups, that's where we're going to get the most success, I believe, rather than just removing things.
But
Going
to
from
think about the
25
kids that aren't being the distraction
Yeah,
as well.
because now they're getting interrupted
Exactly.
and going home with
That's-
a headache or
And that's-
stressed out or.
That's the theory here.
To your point, Mr. Jarrett, parent communication is also very important in this, of course.
So you said it's going down to the elementary. Are we suspending kids in elementary school, or is it not quite there yet?
There are occasions where elementary school students grade 3 and above were by law not allowed to suspend second grade or younger. But third grade and above, there are occasions where students will get suspended.
Like I said, bring parents in, make them sit with them a couple days. I'm all for it. Done.
It'd be worse.
Again, because of budget cuts, we had a computer lab assistant. I think there was a retirement or a resignation, and that position was not backfilled of 2 summers ago at Bayside Elementary School. What that basically means that students at Bayside are getting 1 less unified arts rotation than other elementary school students at the district, and I don't think that's right. And I think we need to reinstate that position at that school.
That's exciting, because that room's just sitting there.
Well, that's, they're not going to their rotation. It's just they have to do it with 4 rotations instead of 5. I know that it's been brought up by the board a lot about having a dedicated grant writer. And so this is recognizing that. We've talked before, we have an excellent grant specialist in the finance department, but she is very much focused on the financial piece and the reporting piece of our grants. This would bring a person, they would be central office based. We haven't really figured out what that would look like. Probably in the curriculum and instruction world under like a Dr. Schreckengast to be focused on writing grants for the whole district.
That'd be awesome.
As has come up a lot, Mr. Pender will tell us, we are, based on recommendations from the state of the number of maintenance workers that we should have for a district our size. This attempts to put a dent in that and add 1, but we would still be, 8 or 10 short?
Currently have 11, we should have 21. We've only increased 2 over the past 30 years.
HR specialists in the central office, we know the time to care is coming, increased demands on retirement, the health benefits, the Time to Care Act, really could use another person in our HR department as well. Finance specialists, the blueprint reporting requirements. We say it as our group of superintendents. The fact that the blueprint said that we should have a blueprint implementation coordinator for the district and did provide some funds for that at the beginning of the blueprint was great. Why they didn't think to fund also a blueprint accounting specialist is beyond all of us with the accounting pieces that we've talked about, and this position would reflect that. Mr. Watkins and his team are just doing the work of too many people, so definitely needed. An additional multilingual teacher. The population of the students are just growing. This would just add another teacher to split between Centerville Elementary School and Churchill Elementary School. A second behavior specialist. This would be a central office-based position. We currently have 1. The special ed population is growing. I forget the percentage of our students that are special ed off the top of my head. I don't know if Mr. Watkins or Dr. Schreckengast remembers that, but really could use extra support there. Second shift custodian in this building. We currently only have 1 custodian, having a second. And the same at Ken Island High School. This one has been needed for a couple years, but we needed to add that back in, if I'm correct, Mr. Pender. Multilingual tutors. This again would support the blueprint requirements for the blueprint for the spending for the multilingual students that we have and the funding that comes in. So this is part-time tutoring positions at our heavy schools with the multilingual learners. A stipend increase for our new teacher mentor program as we bring in new teachers to the district, just having additional funds to pay them, just honoring the contract and their time commitment. Home hospital instruction, that requirement continues to grow. Probably could have argued that this could have been in the gray part before. Again, noting the increase for the hourly bus drivers, again, we probably could have put this one before. Course reimbursement, we cut because of budget cuts, we really feel it's important to acknowledge the professional development needs and wants and continuing education of our staff. So we would like to work to restore that. Some new programs. I don't know if I need to keep talking line by line. I wanted to talk positions, so to answer any other questions.
So in total, it adds up to $14.434 million. And you could go, in times where public education is challenging, that's a hefty lift. It's a little more, it's 10.5% of our budget. When you look at the things and you lay them out, it's hard to not justify the need for most of the things in the budget. Are we looking through this maybe with a little bit of rose-colored glasses? We are, but also at the same time, we spent a lot of time analyzing the information that was given to us, scrubbing it against the budget, and really deciding that this is something that we probably need to go forth with at least to present to the public and to you guys going forward. When we kind of jump back into the presentation, and we can stop and talk about anything that we've shared tonight, but now we go back. We get the state aid file, we put it together with our expenses to present to you a balance sheet that kind of shows the incoming revenue increases and or decreases, and compare it to the projected cost increases that we've presented to you. And then we whittle it down to what we would like to vote on and approve. We have 6 weeks. We have 4 meetings. That seems like a lot. It isn't. We'll be back here in the February meeting. I'm sure we'll have something to share at that point. We're hoping to have the state aid file hopefully by next week, which puts us maybe in the possibility of talking about it on February 4th.
Yeah, so again, having a document like this is roughly 3 to 4 weeks quicker than my time in Queen Anne's County Public Schools. So over the last 5 years, I can't talk before that when it might be presented. But the goal here is to give you all, the board, more time to process this, ask us questions, not make us feel rushed. I felt like the process the past few years has felt really rushed, and we've had to move too quickly. Mr. Watkins and I went back and forth a lot about presenting something like this without having a state aid file, but the reality is the need is the need. We need $9.3 million just to maintain what we're doing right now, 7.35%. The whole $13.4 million increase is a lot of money. I recognize that $13 million is a lot of money. But I will say too, that is a 10% increase from what we currently have in our budget, and just 7% just to maintain. We know you all need time to process this too, but we're happy to talk and answer any questions or talk about anything.
Thank you. We just appreciate you keeping us up to date and so quickly.
Off the top of your head, I don't know if you've done the calculation or not yet. Do you know what the maintenance of effort the county is supposed to provide, what that total number would be from last year?
I have my calculation. It's I calculate it to be about 82.266 million.
Every year that I've been here, they've gone over.
Correct, but I'm just seeing how much we would have
which
to
is-
request over.
Which is close to what the local contribution was this year. And when you look at our budget book, and in fact I'll go back to that.
And the
Oh.
82 million last year was how much higher than the year before?
That's right. So the total maintenance of effort, local autonomy above state funds this year was $17.8 million, and that's a accumulation of maintenance of effort increases over the years. But to our point, lots of counties, there are counties that get just the allocation, just the blueprint. So we do get a lot of support from our local commissioners for our education program. Unfortunately, we're probably going to be asking them for more this year. But as you guys know, it's just going to cost more to continue to do business, and when you go into programs, it costs more to add to programs, and our students here in Queen Anne's County deserve it. They deserve this, and our staff gives them their best every day.
I feel like too.
From the local government, it was $7.6 million more year over year from
Okay.
25 to 26.
I mean, I think by at least for me, this is only my second year. I do feel like how that this is being doled out, I mean, the cost is the cost. It's not like before you might, for me as just a citizen, you're kind of like, well, where's it all going? How can it keep going up? But, the numbers are the numbers, unfortunately. So I do, one of those things where it just is what it is.
In the budget sheet, the one-pager budget sheet with all the individual things, we thought was important to show you guys where we thought those numbers were coming from. When we could have came here and just talked in general and gave a $13 million, but you can see how it added up. And
I'm
there's
a
certainly
visual
things-
person, and this is very helpful.
And this will all go right into the budget book as soon as we start learning your priorities and we get the state aid files. So it's not going to be like other years too, where this is all you ever see. We want to present you a whole budget book because that's the way we should be doing this.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, tracking some of my math here. Roughly, we're going to be looking and asking the commissioners for roughly $9 million over the maintenance of effort this year, just to maintain $13 million to add the programs. So that's what they would have to pay us or give us.
That is correct.
Well,
If the
unfortunately, we don't-
revenues
roughly.
come in.
If the state revenue is the same as
Right.
well. And that's just to maintain what the community, the AIB is telling us is. not-
And there's a small chance the state could go up? I mean, I know it could stay the same or go down, but is there always a
You've heard the
chance?
same news I have heard.
Okay.
I mean, the governor, I know that he presented the budget today. It got released today. I've not had a chance to look at it yet. But either way, Maryland State Department of Education still has to take those numbers and translate them into statutes and decide how that looks as a state aid file. We did attempt to project that, but there's just too many factors that are outside of my control to calculate that. There's the wealth stuff needs work. And I need to see it from their perspective before I can apply it.
Okay.
There's slight increases in a lot of the categories. There's a kind of a larger decrease in the comp ed, which affects us by a lot of students because that's our free and reduced meal students. The pre-K goes up a lot, 36% from 15 to 19,000, but that's also a small group of students. And those funds have to go to that program.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to your point. What do we think? And there's a $1.5 billion deficit in the state of Maryland. So to Mr. Watkins' point, I don't know how the statutes might change. We've been fortunate over the past few years that as the state aid file has changed for us from January to June, that it's only adjusted a few $100,000 either direction. Will that be the same this year? I don't know. Time will tell.
Our job would be keep you informed, work through the process. We'll adjust as we need to adjust based on the information we get, and that's how we're going to do it.
With the board's permission, Mr. Watkins and I would like to put the FY27 budget on the February 4th board meeting agenda so that we don't just save it for a budget work session. If you all are in agreement, that's what we would propose.
Sounds good to me.
That's not saying we won't have a work session, just gives us more time to talk about it together.
Right.
Do you guys have any questions? That concludes the presentation. Do you guys have any questions, or would you like to talk about anything else?
Have we talked to the local commissioners about any of this yet? Do we have an idea where they're at? Do they know where we're at, what we're trying to accomplish?
No, sir. We felt it important to share that you all know first.
Give us the opportunity to decide
Yeah.
if we want to ask for that much or not.
And part of that is we keep coming back to not having that state aid file. I mean, without having that, it's hard to have those discussions. I mean, frankly, trying to be responsible here in what we're showing you right now. There was requests, if you take all the community input, our administrators input, well over $20 million, probably closer to the $25 million. We know that is unreasonable. So we pared it down, just starting what's the maintain. We think it's very important to tell everybody how much it costs just to maintain the current program we have. And then it's really a modest increase that would have a very big impact on the students of Queen Anne's County, that extra little 3%. I know I say little 3% when it's $3.5 million, but had a huge impact on student achievement in Queen Anne's County if we could do that.
I mean, an angle we could approach is look at our test scores last year, and we're second on the shore, but ninth in the state. When shouldn't we be striving for first and first?
Absolutely.
So at that point, knowing that we need these extra bodies and personnel in the schools to push us over that hump, like that's an angle to go. And once we see this, maybe this is the first step this year. And once we see that improvement in these scores, the commissioners of the county or something, whatever, we'll start looking at it differently to add more funding to this. But we have to see results, because as we know, those test scores were not looking good. Second and ninth, to me, we should be first and first. Strive to be better, strive to have more folks there. And then once we see these results, and if we climb the ladder there, that can make a difference too. And I know we're talking about budget here, but that can make a difference in future funding. If we continually bring people here, this is a destination for people that want to live here because our school districts are top in the state, that can make a huge difference.
There's a narrative out there that just putting more money into education doesn't improve outcomes. What I'm telling you is that 7% is just to maintain what we have. We're asking for 3% additional. I mean, the total here is 13.3 or for what we're putting together, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate
I
it.
appreciate your work. This is fantastic. What you guys are doing this year and put together is definitely better than previously. It's not all over the place, we should say.
This minute.
Well, I will. I'm going to tattle on Mr. Watkins and I. 2:44 is when we left each other's company today, time stamping and working on this. So, working hard on this, the whole team.
We sure are. Transparency is important, giving you guys information so that you can make informed decisions. Tonight was important to give all this so you can go home and reflect on all of it and have time to think about it. So when we come back and have some conversations about it, you've had time to reflect on it. And the visuals are needed so that you can see what it is that we assembled. So I used to always call this, when my principal days, is making thinking visible.
What'd you say?
Making thinking visible.
I like it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry.
Next up, we have 4.01, future meetings and events. Our next regular scheduled board meeting is February 4th, 2026 at 6 p.m. Can I get a review of the closed session agenda items? You're gonna need my
I
computer.
need to make a motion to add that.
Oh, sorry.
We can do it in closed,
Okay.
So read
Yeah.
everything?
just that, and then 1 and 2. Yeah.
Okay.
We got the whole thing.
Gotcha. Pursuant to the general provisions, Article 3-305, and -3-104, the Board of Education of Queen Anne's County will meet in a closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals, and to protect the privacy or reputation of individuals concerning a matter not related to public business.
Thank you. And can I get a motion to adjourn open session and a motion to move into closed session?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn open session at 5:48 and to move into closed session.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.